People who choose to cut off your family, why did you do it? I cut off my aunt, uncle, and 2 cousins on my dad's side of the family. I got sick of their BS. I don't have much family, so it was a big thing. The main reason I cut them off is because all the BS lies they spread about me. They think they're better than everyone else, so in order to make themselves look good, they have to make others look bad. They're terrible people and live in crap, so they have nothing good about them. My wife and I married fast. Didn't have a wedding or anything, just went to the courthouse. The second they heard I was married, they heard from my dad. They had already made up a story about how my wife was an exotic dancer who worked on the side, and I only married her because I knocked her up. My wife was never an exotic dancer. Well, for me, she was. She never did that, and she definitely wasn't pregnant. He told everyone this story until we made a surprise visit when we were cutting through the state they lived in. All of a sudden, she never heard that story. They're the type of people who will only talk to you if they think they can get something from you for free. For example, when her father was still alive, she never talked to him. Until her roof was leaking, she then called him out of the blue and said she would fly him over 1,400 miles if he fixes her roof. They weren't going to pay him, just fly him out there. Another thing they do, which is geared mainly at me, their oldest son, or my cousin, is about a year younger than me. He's a lazy piece of crap. He still, to this day, he's almost 30 now, has to be forced to take a shower. If you don't make him, he'll go weeks without one. He doesn't want to do a damn thing. But they think he's the smartest person on earth, so they try to make me look like a terrible person. I would call the college I was going to at the time and tell them I was crazy and had a drinking problem, and I was probably drinking behind the school. Yeah, that never happened. And I was still working for a company that would call there saying I cheated on my substance screening or I was selling substances at work. FYI, I've never done illegal substances in my life. My personal favorite, that I worked on their car while on the clock. Also never happened, and they demanded the car be replaced because I broke it. My dumb cousin broke it. After I quit and started working for myself, they would spread false advertisements around saying I would steal your stuff. They did this because I refused to work in their crap. It was just one thing after another. Well, I got tired of their crap and changed all our numbers, then got a lawyer for $250 just to threaten a lawsuit for slandering our name. They shut the hell up. After they cried saying, "How could you do this to your family?" They also piss everyone off with their religious BS. They've been Mormon for years, but I swear the particular church they go to is a cult. If you're not Mormon, they will try to convert you. If you don't, they treat you like whale turd. Years later, we still haven't talked to them and have no intention to. They don't know where I live. They know the state, and that's it. They know they're not welcome here. Now I have a kid on the way, and I'm sure they're starting some new lives, but I don't care. I live on the other side of the country. Imagine having no life that all you can do is spread rumors about someone in your family. That's so sad. Story 2. I cut off my dad back in 2018 because he basically stole my car. It was under his name, but it was a gift to me that I'd been driving for about a year. It was a piece of junk and cost me more than it was worth, but it was still unexpected to one day not have wheels. He took it and changed his number or moved. He and I had never had a great relationship, though. We'd gone through years of not talking at a time ever since I was like 12, so I shrugged it off. I'd see him steadily for 1 to 2 years and then nothing for a year or two. He and my stepmom, who had originally introduced him to hard substances in the first place, was sent to jail a year later for a substance-related pistol whipping someone outside a 7-Eleven, and since we have the same name, I got a ton of texts from people I hadn't spoken to in years thinking it was me. At that point, I decided I really didn't need that kind of chaos in my life, so I made no attempts to reach out to him. He got out of jail and got clean. In 2021, I had planned on reaching out to him on his birthday in September, because I'm a sap, but when he didn't come to my grandma's funeral that same year, I decided not to bother. My grandma was on my mom's side. She'd always loved him, and I thought that was his chance to be the bigger man and reach out to me in my time of need, and he didn't. Then he got back together with my stepmom, which further cemented my decision to not reach out after all. And I heard that even though they were together that he was still clean, so part of me still wanted to. At the end of the day, I forgot to message him. His birthday was a week past before I realized it. Can you blame me for forgetting? I hadn't spoken to him in years. I decided I'd just wait until his birthday in 2022 because I didn't just want to message him on some random date. I wanted to reach out on a day that would have some meaning. And maybe a part of me again thought he'd reach out to me first since my birthday was in April. He passed away this past June, and I'm filled with regret every day about not trying to reach out to him. Story 3. I was always the black sheep of the family because back in the 80s and 90s, I was a typical inner-city skate punk. While my parents had no problem smacking me around, it was how they were raised. My extended family all sort of teased me and picked on me for the way I dressed and cut my hair. Never mind that when you're a teenager, your appearance is pretty important. And since I didn't have much money to buy stylish clothes, I'd punk up thrift store clothes in order to not feel like a bummy hobo. Once my mom passed away suddenly when I was 18, I pretty much had no reason to stick around, so I took off. I still see my dad on occasion, and he's seriously mellowed out to the point where he's a different person. I'm actually pretty resentful because when I was a kid, he'd rough me up for every little thing, and now he's a typical whiny old man. He's made a few apologies for being hard on me when I was a kid, and, well, I forgive him, because by now I feel like the cruelty I suffered made me hard, and that came in handy when I was in the army. I don't really feel any need to get in closer to him. I also have a younger brother and sister. I won't go into details about why I don't spend any time with them, but for the most part, my sister has her own life and is a lot younger than me, and my brother is the type of guy who stopped growing up when he was 16, and is basically the same underachieving loser who refuses to take any responsibility for his actions, because his mom passed and everyone owes him for that. At 40, as he was at 17, and only ever calls me when he's feeling sorry for himself or needs a handout. I haven't talked to him in years. Meanwhile, I've pretty much had to claw my way out to where I am, and since the only person who ever gave me any encouragement has always been there for me as my wife, I live for her and my kid. I don't hate my family, but they never did much for me, and now I have my own life. Yeah, you go, dude. You built your own life, and now you're independent. Story 4. My immediate family cut off pretty much every member of my father's side of the family, with the exception of 3 people. Several years back, when my father was about to pass away, we desperately needed help. Some financial, but otherwise just emotional support. We were losing my father, but they didn't care. Some of them even went out of their way to screw us over. And when he was nearing the end, one of the worst of them called us up, all worried about arranging my father's last rites. First off, everyone knew my father was not religious and didn't want that. And second, you didn't give a damn about him before, but now you're worried about his mortal soul? We actually had to warn the care home about this relative potentially sneaking in a priest, and we also spoke with a close friend who was a priest himself, who wrote said relative a letter that politely told him to piss off. They can all rot for all I care. They made me ashamed to share the same last name. Story 5. I haven't talked to my mom in over 9 years now. It sucks, but I've been much happier ever since I made that decision. When I was growing up, she was always the type that instead of providing any sort of encouragement, she would embarrass you as motivation. She would point at homeless people and say, "That's what I would become if I didn't work hard enough." I remember when I was playing piano, she would tell all her friends that she wanted me to know how to play so I could at least play on the streets for money. When I had a recital at school, there was a place that I kind of blanked out on, so I had to do that thing where you backtrack in the song and play it really quick to remember the song. It was obvious that I messed up, though. Afterwards, my mom told me she was so embarrassed that she wanted to leave. The breaking point was when I was trying to apply for dental school. I was having a hard time with the DATs, MCAT version of dentists, for I just taken it and got a bad score. I came home not feeling so great and my mom asked me how I did. I told her not that well and she looked at me and said, "See? I knew you couldn't do it." She forced me to sign up for it again and lo and behold, I did poorly again. This time I wanted to just avoid any contact with my mom, so I made sure to leave the house before she woke up and came home after she went to bed. During this time I had gotten a speeding ticket, but I paid it off in secret. What I didn't realize is that a bunch of driving schools will mail you brochures to take their course to get the points off your license. My mom found out and she called me immediately. What my mom didn't know was that I was in the car with all my friends and I put her on speaker when she started screaming, "What are you doing with your life? Just drop out of school and bag groceries. Stop wasting everybody's time." Ever since that day, I decided to just not talk to my mom. There's actually a bunch more to the story, but fast forward 9 years and I've completed dental school and in my last year of orthodontic residency. I heard from her coworkers how often she brags about my accomplishments and how proud she is of me. Some part of me wishes our relationship was better, but I always go back to thinking that it was too little too late. I never understood why humiliating someone would constitute as motivation. You have no right to berate anyone, especially your kids. Now she's bragging about it after years of calling her a failure? Two-faced. But somewhere in the near future, she'll be so far above her mother that she can forgive or at least cope with her behavior. It'll get better if you want it to, but only because you continue to grow so much better. It'll hurt you less and less and less. Anyway, since you're already here, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Story 6. I'm fine with everyone in my family, except for my grandmother. All my life she's been a bully towards me and most of the other members of her family. Just a few examples. When I was 14 and very slim, she told me it was only a matter of time before I became fat and ugly, told me how much thinner or prettier she was when she was 14. When I was 18, I got a tattoo. She drank 2 bottles of wine and shouted at my 6-year-old nephew and his little friends playing outside that all women with tattoos are trash. We had a huge family dinner one year, the only one where everyone has been able to come, and it will never happen again because we had some loss of life in the family. She convinced herself that she was only invited to take care of the check. But no, and wouldn't eat, wouldn't let my grandfather eat, and threw a fit about not being able to sit close to my brother. So in May of 2016, I finally graduated from college. I invited all my friends, a few professors and family, including grandma. Well, my nephew was hitting some of the guests with a balloon sword, which was annoying, so I took it from him and told him no. My grandma completely loses her mind, shouting at me for being so nasty and mean. Then she follows me inside. I'm cutting my professor some cake when she unironically curses my firstborn child. It was super embarrassing, and she apologized later, said she was sorry that she loved her grandson so much. Lol. So just haven't talked to her since. The rest of my family guilts me about it a lot, but it's not like her being such a witch is anything new. They all hate dealing with her, but they put up with it because we're related? Screw that. Story 7. Parents divorced when I was 2 and my father was still pretty active in my life. His mother watched me while my mom worked till she had a stroke when I was 6. Shortly before that, he had gone married to the vile woman who made it clear that I had no place in her family. Numerous things happened when I was left in their care. The worst of all of them was being forgotten all day in a pool, and after around 8 to 12 hours, my ginger bum was blistering. My skin is crawling thinking about how much pain I was in. This gave me a horrible case of agoraphobia, which I still have to manage today. Despite literally having a legitimate fear of direct sunlight, my father would only take me fishing and berate me on my own interests. Comics, movies, art, and music. Why couldn't I be more like my brother who was chasing girls and playing football? After a while, I started to try to force distance between myself and my father. Stopped taking his calls, quit engaging with him. My half-brother, who was no relation to him, only strengthened. When my mom and stepdad moved to California, they moved my grandmother out of the home that her husband, my grandfather, built in Houston to a third-rate nursing home. Gave my childhood toys to his wife's grandson, classic TMNT, Legos, G.I. Joes, and sold everything else of value. She passed away in 2006. I was only told that the woman who helped raise me had passed away via my mother's younger sister who was married to my father's best friend. We haven't talked since. He had a heart attack in December, found out from my brother. He told me to sit down and made me promise not to cry. He went into his bedroom and pulled out my blue suitcase that says, "Going to Grandma's," from my childhood days staying with Ma, and I started crying like a little girl. He told me to open it and my TMNT toys were inside, broken, mangled, and destroyed, but I have them now. They're put up for safekeeping. My brother told me that after the heart attack, my father's wife decided to start spring cleaning and my brother pulled this from the garbage. So my father wasn't physically cruel, but he screwed over everyone in his family, keeping his witch of a wife happy. If anyone ever wants a clear definition of a simp, let them read this story and tell them the father is a perfect example. Story 8. I haven't cut them off, but have limited my interactions with them as of late. They are very judgmental people. They like to overanalyze what other people do and how those actions don't fit into their views or beliefs. They think I'm lazy despite the fact that I have a full-time, six-figure-a-year job and routinely have consistent side projects and have had work published in international magazines. They think my career as a graphic designer is a bit of a joke and a phase, and when I eventually crash and burn, I'll need to come back to their family business. They've implied I'm the reason the family business is failing, which it's not. They just use that as a manipulation tactic. I have a very small stake in the business and I don't work on it full-time. They constantly criticize things I do and talk about me behind my back. For instance, I heard from several extended family members how disappointed my parents were when I chose to hire a realtor to sell some property as opposed to selling it myself. They again considered this as a lazy move and that I was crazy to pay a realtor to do it. Never mind the fact that I easily made that money back just doing some freelance on the side. You know, actually spending my time doing what I'm good at rather than bumble through the real estate process that I know nothing about. It made me realize that I really can't tell them anything without being judged or criticized. That I've lived a fair portion of my life constantly worried that they'll disapprove of the decisions I make, so I just made the choice to stop revealing details of my life. I still see them consistently, but it's getting more and more awkward to be around them. I'm hesitant to even talk to them about movies I've seen since I know they judge me for spending money to go see new movies. Basically, we can talk about the funny things my kids and my dogs do, and that's about it. Story 9. After my parents passed away, my only remaining grandparent decided that I must be mega rich and that she wanted some of the money. I wasn't mega rich, it's just that her definition of rich encompasses literally anyone who has a job instead of living by benefit fraud. She teamed up with my substance-dealing uncle, fresh out of jail for armed robbery in GBH, and they stalked me for about 2 years. Phone calls at all hours, often threatening in tone, turning up to loiter outside my building, following me in the car, that kind of thing. I was young and scared and didn't want to incur the wrath of the rest of the family by calling the police, so I just kept my head down and rode it out until I was finally able to move and escape from them. I was a bit sad to have to cut off from the entire family as there were a few relatives I liked, but they were all too close-knit and messed up. The only way out was alone and completely. Story 10. It sucks a lot, but because of their financial situation. Grew up poor, bottom lower class, lived in a crime-riddled neighborhood. Always kept saying, it'll get better. It never did. We got like $500 a month in food stamps for a while for 4 people. They burned through that in 1 to 2 weeks with lavish or non-stretching meals, i.e. ramen, rice, sandwich meat, etc., etc. No possible loans for financial wins. My dad's credit has never seen above 600. On top of all this, they're very religious. The smallest, coolest toys I was allowed to have for free or given to play with when I was a child was constantly under review and scrutiny as to whether or not it's against God. Yeah, sometimes I feel like a jerk, but in many ways I'm thankful. Instead of growing up not appreciating things, etc., I grew up knowing the value of the smallest $1 to $2 toy. We spent 3 to 4 Christmases in a row without presents under our tree. When I was 18, I left and stopped providing any sort of financial assistance. I'm very thankful that I learned early on in life how to be self-sufficient. What mistakes to avoid in life. I do text them from time to time and say hello, but not much more. It could drag the richest person down to nothing in a surprising amount of time. Every day I feel bad. Sometimes worse, sometimes not as much, but I really don't associate with them or feel any sort of connection anymore. Well, in the long run, that was a good choice. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.